Clavicular is a 20-year-old Looksmaxxer, which is a term from online incel communities to refer to trying to improve your attractiveness so that you can have a higher SMV, sexual market value. I figured, let me see what the fuss is all about. So I watched his Channel 5 interview, and I kind of get it. Clavicular is a man of contrasts. He talks like an incel, but he's conventionally attractive and gets plenty of women. He hangs out with some of the worst men in the manosphere, yet he himself says he's apolitical. He lacks social prowess, yet he's made an entire career off of connecting with his fans. But how did this man of contrast go from talking about Looksmaxxing to storming off his Channel 5 interview?
You want to be completely disingenuous, that's fine with me. I guess there's just no point to continue.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I was curious to watch because I had a feeling it would reveal something very interesting about Clavicular, and once I figured it out, it was honestly fascinating. I'd like for this discussion to be sort of a broader conversation about the way that Looksmaxxing appeals to and exploits people with neurodivergence. Obviously, I don't know Clavicular, I don't know if he has a diagnosis or doesn't. From what I understand, he suggested he's on the autism spectrum, but he's not formally diagnosed. However, hearing him talk about Looksmaxxing did get me reflecting on the ways that Looksmaxxing communities can exploit people with various forms of neurodivergence. Hi guys, Anna from the future here. I originally filmed this video weeks ago, but a lot has happened since then, so I just wanted to hop on and give an update. Please excuse my not so ideal setup. I'm currently on vacation, so I don't have access to like my microphone and everything. So a few days before this video was scheduled to go live, Clavicular experienced a medical emergency after taking a substance on stream, and he was rushed to the hospital. He also seems to have gone right back to the club shortly after this incident, and he released a statement saying, "Just got home, that was brutal. All of the substances are just to cope, trying to feel neurotypical while being in public, but obviously that isn't a real solution. The worst part of tonight was my face descending from the life support mask." I think this goes to show that a lot of the stuff we're talking about today can quickly turn serious. So it just kind of adds a heavier note on everything that I'm about to talk about in this video. Anyway, I just wanted to give that update, and I wish Clavicular a speedy recovery, but let's get back to the video. This is gonna be kind of a long one, so get cozy and let's get started. The first thing I learned about Clavicular in this interview was that he values attractiveness above all else. Like when he says that looks are arguably one of the most important things in life.
I am Clavicular. I do live streaming. I hop on a variety of podcasts to talk about sort of my philosophy on why looks are arguably one of the most important things in terms of your success in life.
Now, Andrew asks a lot of questions about Looksmaxxing, about bone smashing.
The first thing that caught my eye was the bone smashing.
About how Clavicular stays lean.
What are some of the easiest ways to do that besides just creating a caloric deficit?
Here's another example.
So if I'm 202 right now and I want to be 185, what's the fastest way to get there in 30 days?
Whether Clavicular is concerned about the health consequences of all these different things he's doing.
Are you concerned about any adverse health effects?
But every time Andrew veers even slightly off the topic of Looksmaxxing, Clavicular's answer is a flat, "I don't know how that's relevant." Like, listen to his response when Andrew asks him about the loneliness epidemic.
I think people are scared to make friends now too. Screen time's at an all-time high. People aren't really going out. Community's kind of in collapse. Less people have real friends.
I don't know the relevance of that.
What do you mean?
What's the relevance of that? It's like
what's kind of what you were just talking about?
Not at all.
Wanting to ascend and finding your place in the world, SMV.
I was just talking about pharmacology.
Oh yeah, but I'm kind of getting into your goal is to help people ascend, right?
Andrew asks about the value of engaging with people in real life, and Clavicular's response is honestly quite sad. Because according to Clavicular, if you don't dedicate your entire life to Looksmaxxing, your priorities are warped.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what's the value there? I mean,
in engaging with people in real life?
Yeah, I mean, there's really not that many people that are worth interacting with, I would say.
What do you mean?
Like, most people are extremely jester.
Like, they're funny, or like they're just like...
Just have completely misprioritized lives. I would say the average person that you meet who's like an enjoyer of sports, who drinks beer, for example, you know, let's go have a beer at the pub and watch Sunday football. Like, that's the worst thing that you could do. Like, you should be on PubMed reading various different studies on how you could Looksmax.
You don't think there's any value in like social interactions with people?
I wouldn't say people in general. I'd say that there's certain people that you could certainly learn from, but the average person that you encounter is literally like ladaring watching like a baseball game.
He gives the example of someone going out for a beer to watch sports with a friend and how that is somebody with their priorities not on straight. When I was listening to his take about how it's dumb to have, a glass of alcohol when you're out with friends, how the purpose of alcohol is essentially leverage in order to get you to talk to more girls, this made me think about something I've often reflected about OCD. And what I have often felt is the saddest part about having an obsessive compulsive mind is how it robs you of your ability to experience joy. Because everything is about optimization, everything is about extrinsic rewards or about attaining certain numbers. And when your mind is just so preoccupied with these tangible, concrete, extrinsic rewards, you can't really just live in the present and enjoy the present moment. It's kind of like the difference between just having a drink for fun or for joy or to connect with a friend versus having a drink with the ulterior motive of being more disinhibited so that you can get laid. It's sad because it robs you of the ability to play, which the definition of play is to just do something without any sort of reason. It's not playing the piano, for example, because you want to do better at a recital or you want for your mom to not yell at you. You're playing the piano simply because you are loving the way that the music is sounding and you love this feeling of flow when you're doing it.
People will just drink alcohol for no reason at all. It seems like, let's go have a drink, when if you were actually smart, you would realize the purpose of alcohol is to lower your inhibitions to talk to girls. So that's the only time in which it makes sense to leverage such a toxic drug like ethanol.
For Clavicular, even sex is not supposed to be fun.
Don't you think you maybe want a more experienced partner so that that person has better understanding of human intimacy?
No, because that's not what sex is intended for, right? It's enjoyable to have sex with women, but that's not the intention behind it, and that was never meant to be. This is a very new thing in the context of history. People just have regular sex with random people for pure pleasure and then never talk to them again.
Which, technically it is for the furtherment of the species, but it's evolutionarily created to be a fun experience for people because evolution wants us to pass along our genes. I'm just kind of aghast thinking about how much joy and play and fun must be missing from someone's life to literally think that sex only exists for a secondary purpose. Clavicular then says that most people are not worth wanting a connection with. For example, he says there's no point in going on a date with a girl if you're not going to stream it. Andrew pushes back on this a bit, and Clavicular asks, what's the ROI on that?
And that sort of is something I experience is it's a mega waste of time.
Just talking to girls, going out on dates and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, I do content, so it's one thing where, but I was talking about this on my stream the other day. Say you were to do a bowling date with a girl and you weren't streaming it, that's just the most ridiculous.
Well, what about connecting with her because you like her or something like that? Maybe you want to start a family.
But where's the ROI in that?
What's that?
Where's the ROI?
Sorry, what's ROI?
Return on investment.
Which reveals this very transactional, dehumanizing view of people that's very common in spheres like the manosphere. People exist only as tools to get something you want, not as people whose closeness brings you some sort of spiritual warmth or who have value simply because they are living beings. Someone in a comment recently said that this manosphere's take is almost like people are human doings rather than human beings, and that really stuck with me. These incel communities don't even pretend not to dehumanize people. They literally have hierarchies in which they rate people in terms of how valuable versus subhuman they are.
On these three sites, a shared ranking scale was developed called the PSL scale, which ranks men from terachad and gigachad all the way down to subhuman.
Now, something else that I realized about the way Clavicular talks about the Looksmaxxing community is that it seems like he still feels like an incel deep down. He talks about how he's not really that far out from being an incel right now.
I'm still not that far out of it, right? So I was that guy not too long ago, so I still can put myself in their shoes and empathize with having a bad job, working in a restaurant, being unattractive, not being able to get girls. It's not like I'm, 40 years old with a long and successful media career. I just started doing this.
And you could argue that inceldom is more of a mindset rather than what actual sexual behaviors you take part in. My husband had a really good point when we were watching this interview. He said that Clavicular has only done the outer work into sort of attracting partners, but none of the inner work. So of course he's going to feel like an incel deep down because he's not learning how to overcome social issues without leaning on substances as a crutch. Or I don't get the sense that he's gone to therapy and like deconstructed the way he completely devalues connection. And so my husband was saying it's very much going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy for him because he's only going to attract women who care about appearance, and that will then confirm his belief that women only care about appearance. But the thing that was really frustrating during the interview, I think not only for me but also for the interviewer, was Clavicular's inability to get deeper about why Looksmaxxing is so important to him. Why does he think it's like the thing that you should aspire to? Because he was saying it's not really about the money, it's not really about getting laid. So then what is it actually about exactly? Andrew was trying to get him to explain it, but Clavicular seemed kind of incapable of putting it into words.
I'm just confused because it's like, on one hand, you're saying you want to like help men improve their aesthetics and succeed in life so that they don't feel so lonely and they're not so hateful and they can go out and succeed. Then you also say that like going out and dating and stuff is a waste of time and that you should prioritize looksmaxxing and aesthetic improvement. So I'm just trying to figure out like what the real goal is for improvement because it kind of feels like a closed circle, you know?
So this is the part of the video where I'm going to talk about how Looksmaxxing can appeal to people with various forms of neurodivergence. I'm not necessarily saying Clavicular is neurodivergent. I don't know him. For all I know, this could be an online persona he puts on. But let's start with OCD, because I think the concept of Looksmaxxing can really appeal to people with OCD obsessions, like body dysmorphia, illness anxiety, orthorexia. All of these are essentially about optimization. Everything seems to be something maxing for Clavicular. It's all optimization, you know? Sometimes people become obsessed with numbers, but they're not in touch with what the numbers actually mean to them. So from the perspective of like, you know, let's say somebody with OCD that takes more of a body dysmorphia approach, maybe also has an eating disorder, they might be thinking, I'm no longer going to feel this anxiety or shame or guilt or worthlessness once I reach this number, this goal weight. And once they reach their goal weight, they absolutely still do experience those painful emotions because reaching that certain number is not going to protect them from the underlying emotion that they're trying to run away from. And then even if the eating disorder is then resolved, if the underlying root isn't resolved, the symptoms are just going to jump to something else. It's kind of like playing whack-a-mole. You know, if you only address a symptom, it pops up somewhere else unless you really pull it out from the root. So then maybe, you know, you're not so focused on body dysmorphia anymore, but you migrate to illness anxiety. Sometimes though, this like optimization, this hyperfixation on numbers can also be about a person trying to distract themselves from something else in their life. Like somebody who's, let's say, in denial about their sexuality might compulsively optimize their body and become sort of obsessed with their appearance as a way to distract from these powerful sexual urges that they think are unacceptable. Because as we know, the best way to get over something is to find something else to obsess over. It's why people get over a relationship faster, for example, when they suddenly form a crush on someone else. But even in that example, doing so is not a really good idea because the underlying issues from that breakup or from the relationship, that unprocessed grief, it's going to come back even harder if you just try to sort of patch it over with a new obsession. Avoidance is kind of always pretty much guaranteed to backfire. It's like pushing a beach ball underwater. It just pops back even harder. Obsessions and compulsions can also become kind of addictive. At first, you feel bad, so you set out to change that, let's say by becoming a giga-chad, and you put in this like ritualized, compulsive, rigid work to achieve the body you want. And once you achieve something about looks that you want, you get this like rush of dopamine. And as soon as it wears off, you're left craving more. You're kind of left with this come down. And so you find something else about your body that you're not happy with. So you give in to your compulsions again, which further strengthens the obsessive compulsive loop. Let me give you another example. Let's say you feel gross or like not right because the floor isn't completely clean. So you mop it, you get a hit of dopamine. The second another speck shows up on the floor, you feel even more intense anxiety unless you alleviate that distress with the compulsion of again cleaning it. And the obsessions and compulsions just get stronger every time that you give into it. That is why I think Looksmaxxing can appeal to someone with obsessive compulsive ways of thinking. Looksmaxxing can also appeal to people with autistic hyperfixations, because hyperfixating on something to the point where it takes up hours of your time isn't just a component of OCD, it's also something that can happen with autism spectrum disorder. This is because autistic people can sustain focus for an extended period of time because they tend to prefer predictable, ritualized routines and rule systems, and because they sometimes struggle with task switching. That's why, for example, transitions tend tend to be really difficult for them. Looksmaxxing plays right into that. It's concrete, tangible, measurable. It's socially incentivized. I mean, Clavicular literally makes bank off of monetizing what appears to be a hyperfixation. But there are a lot of topics that somebody could hyperfixate on. Trains, maps, Japan. So why would someone hyperfixate on looksmaxxing in particular? If somebody feels socially inept in some way, they're more likely to turn to online forms of community and connection, which means they are more prone to falling down pipelines like the incel pipeline. Also, for autistic people, social life can sometimes feel confusing, unpredictable, and full of unspoken rules, like needing to make small talk, the expectation of reciprocity in conversation, other people's desire to be validated when they're talking, the idea of like gradually increasing intimacy. All of these things that are kind of like social norms in society for autistic people can be kind of confusing, but Looksmaxxing provides a very concrete how-to manual for excelling socially. If you get these specific facial proportions and this specific body fat percentage, then you'll be a desirable person to other people. It's like a rule book for how to get along with others. But no matter how much Clavicular likes to pretend he doesn't care about connecting with other human beings, that other people are mainly just jesters, he admits that his looksmaxxing journey was born of him wanting connection.
Obviously, people are going to be more drawn to you if you're good looking. And I would say that, growing up, especially during puberty, early into high school, I really wasn't. So it is what it is.
We are genetically programmed to value attachment to others from birth. This is because evolutionarily speaking, the babies that were more likely to demand that their moms be near them were the ones that ended up surviving. And so as a species, we really evolved to be highly attachment focused. So if somebody acts like they don't need other people or they don't care about connection, it's typically because they were at some point made to feel rejected. So they started to devalue that which they assumed they could not have. It's the same concept as like an avoidant attachment style, where likely sometime in childhood, a person was made to feel like their primary attachment figures weren't reliable for them. So they said, you know what, you can't fire me, I quit, I actually don't need connection in the first place. Now there's kind of like a debate about whether this counts as a form of neurodivergence, but I think that looksmaxxing would also appeal to people who are narcissistic. Because in narcissism, there's kind of this fantasy of one day having this ideal self that's meant to overcompensate for what's unconsciously feelings of inferiority and worthlessness and self-disgust. Usually this comes up because sometime during development, these kids were made to feel inadequate about something. Maybe they were bullied in school, maybe they were too shy to talk to their crushes, or maybe they were excessively criticized or belittled or shamed by their caregivers. So they formed this like hard outer shell that's like very grandiose and arrogant and entitled to protect them from that feeling of smallness. Narcissist worldview is also extremely dehumanizing, where people's value boils down to extremely concrete, socially desired aspects like their financial success, their height, what university they attended, how impressive your CV is, your GPA. For them, people's worth is not judged in terms of connection, but rather a very numerical, sort of economical way of viewing things. What's the ROI this person brings to me? What's my SMV? What do I have to gain from this? Is this person part of a select elite that makes me feel like I'm superior from other people in order to distract from my deep unconscious shame? I've been watching a lot of interviews recently on this channel called Borderliner Notes of people diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and a common theme that keeps coming up for them is how they built this facade, usually around adolescence, to defend against these feelings of worthlessness and self-disgust that others have made them internalize.
If you want to understand what NPD is at its core, it's just like one day you decide after growing up so fucking like with your past self being so fucking worthless, ugly, cringy, no one wanted them, they had to sit there and watch other people laugh and have fun and date. You're just like, you know what, fuck this, I don't want to be this person anymore, I'm gonna totally be somebody else, it's over. Like, there was a moment where I just decided like, I'm done, I'm just gonna be somebody else now. And I worked really hard at that. And I worked really hard to cover all of that shit up. And I thought to myself, if I become perfect, if I become somebody else completely, I will never have to worry again about feeling shame.
I mean, for a long time, it was like, I was pathetic. I was like, I was awkward and emotional and disgusting. And so like, it kind of became second nature to start berating myself for those flaws so I could change myself, right? To start like being a person that like was worth something.
And it's interesting that it's disgust in particular for the self that a lot of them cite feeling, because disgust is often an emotion that drives people with OCD to complete their compulsions. People think that OCD is just about anxiety. It's not always just about anxiety. A lot of times it's about disgust. Like, of course, someone with decontamination themes that needs to like wash their hands a certain amount of times before they can finally feel clean. But it's not just that. Even things like body dysmorphia ultimately boil down to disgust more than anxiety. And so I think that this is really interesting that like Looksmaxxing seems to target people with various forms of neurodivergence that feel this like deep disgust for themselves, that feel subhuman in some way. Now let's address the confrontation that made Clavicular walk off set. Towards the end of the interview, Andrew starts asking him about the Hitler outing that got him banned from Miami clubs. And Clavicular gets upset about that, and it's not quite clear to me, is he more upset about the fact that he was asked about this thing in particular, or the fact that they're again veering away from the topic of Looksmaxxing?
So, while on stream, a while ago now, Clav went to a nightclub in Miami with some other guys. While they were out, both in the Sprinter van and inside the club, somebody played Kanye's famous Hitler song. You know the one. The incident led to widespread media attention, condemnation by political leadership, a blame game amongst participants, and earned Clav a lifelong ban from all major Miami clubs.
How did I feel about it?
Yeah, the aftermath, like the
Well, I
magnitude
mean,
of
it sucks not being able to go to like some of the mod clubs. I mean, I just started college club maxing. In a lot of ways, that was like actually better because it's more affordable actually. So like, you know, a lot of people like sort of like to talk about that in interviews, and it's like, dude, what's the relevance? Like, how is that even correlated with Looksmaxxing?
For people with hyperfixations, there's sometimes this like bottomless desire to talk about their interests and not a lot of awareness that maybe the other person might be not that interested in the topic, or maybe might want to also talk about other things. And also the lack of social skills and like cognitive empathy that's often present there can make this a blind spot where they literally don't even recognize it. They're just maybe trying to connect with the other person or getting excited over their interests, and they don't realize how unenjoyable it is for the other person. But I will say it is a bit unusual for even neurodivergent people to actually get angry for someone trying to change the subject. So I wonder if something else might be going on here, some sort of defensiveness about the topic that Andrew switched to, or some other psychological phenomenon that causes him to actually get upset if people aren't going along with his script. Then Andrew asks Clavicular about his security, and Clavicular immediately shuts it down.
From a security standpoint, how do you stop stream snipers from ruining your...
I'm not gonna talk about that.
Okay. Just because you don't want people to know what your protocol is?
Correct.
Word.
I do kind of understand this is like a little bit of a weird question. It's possible at this point that like Andrew was experiencing something called projective identification, which is when somebody makes you feel the way that they feel. So if Clavicular was feeling socially awkward, it's possible that through his behavior, he was sort of unconsciously making Andrew also start to behave a little bit socially awkward. Andrew then starts just like kind of talking out loud saying like, I'm not really sure what to ask you about then, because Clavicular has made it clear that he only wants to talk about Looksmaxxing.
Trying to think what else I should ask about. It's tough because I don't want to put you in any boxes, but I'm sure there's people that probably want to know about various controversies. If you don't want to talk about any, that's cool.
I mean, more so like to talk about like Looksmaxxing in my interviews.
Clavicular expresses that he's frustrated because no one has ever asked him about Looksmaxxing, at which point I was like, wait, what? They talked about this so many times. Like, Andrew had so many questions about Looksmaxxing. It was basically the entire interview. And then Clavicular kind of confronts Andrew on clip farming and sort of like gotcha questions.
And it's like kind of annoying because no interviewer has actually like come up with a question ever that's been more than what would be the number one piece of advice you would recommend people to Looksmaxx. I've genuinely never had a single person ask me specifics about how do these two things interact, or how does Looksmaxxing differ from this age to this age? Is it still possible to Looksmaxx? Like, there's no effort really behind the questions that you guys prepare, seemingly. It just seems to be a lot of like gotcha mode, like clip farm shit. And
Well, I'm
it's
not
like,
doing that.
Yeah, you are a little bit to a degree.
I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
when you see the full presentation, it's not really going to be edited or clipped into my
Well,
face.
just because it's not the worst interview I've had. I mean, like you had like a couple of ones that you were trying to sneak in with like, oh, what is slut hate? It's like,
Yeah, I mean, it's the second letter in the...
but I mean, like you know what you're intentionally trying to do.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, because it's a pretty strongly worded forum and subculture.
Yeah, and that would be fine if that question was in there because it's decently relevant to the culture, but There was not even a single genuine attempt at like a specific Looksmaxx question.
And it was weird to me because like the things he cited as Andrew trying to manipulate him for, in my opinion, were like the least offensive ones. It's almost like he doesn't quite understand when he's being manipulated. So he accuses Andrew of trying to manipulate him by asking about like a term that's one of the more controversial terms of Looksmaxxing. But I would argue that when Andrew asked about that, he was actually pretty upfront about thinking that the term was misogynistic. He wasn't like trying to manipulate him down a specific path.
What does the S and PSL stand for?
Sluthate.com.
That's a pretty intense like word, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
You don't think that like veers towards sort of like a anti-woman vibe?
However, in my opinion, Clavicular completely missed the points throughout the interview where, to me, it did seem like Andrew was sort of walking him towards a narrative that would get engagement. Like when Andrew was asking him about his social experiences in school and the role that the pandemic played on his social life. You know, in my mind, I was wondering, is he trying to like shape this narrative that Clavicular was socially awkward and that's why he leaned so much into Looksmaxxing?
So going back to like the early days, you were born in 2005, right?
That's right.
How would you describe your like childhood? Was it fun?
Pretty normal, let's say.
Your social experience in school though, how was that?
I mean, what age range are we talking about?
I guess like right around 13, 14 is what I'm thinking.
Well, that would have been during the pandemic. So I was in online school.
Oh shit. How do you think that being in online school like, you know, transformed your experience during that time?
Well, obviously you're not interacting with anyone. So
Yeah.
You're just like Ladaring.
But I mean, was that the time window that you sort of fell into the Looksmaxxing community?
Around that time, actually, yeah.
What do you think?
Right at the tail end of the pandemic, actually.
What do you think like initially appealed to you about it?
Or when Andrew was asking him about his drug use, it seemed pretty clear to me that he was trying to walk him into talking about meth. And when Clavicular didn't outright say that he's used meth, Andrew was forced to flat out ask about it.
What drugs do you find help you the most?
Pregabalin, stimulants, I'd say.
Yeah, so just drugs that keep you up, basically. Make it easier to talk to people and do your job.
Pregabalin's a little different. It blocks certain neurotransmitters that are excitatory, right? So your glutamate, and that causes social anxiety, right? By blocking that neurotransmitter while the drug's half-life is active, now you're like in a low inhibition state for, you know, the 6 to 8 hours.
You don't got to talk about this if you don't want, but have you ever used like methamphetamine?
Yeah, no, I've used methamphetamine.
It also seemed at one point like maybe Andrew was trying to get him to walk into saying that meth isn't so bad, which Clavicular did not do because he apparently doesn't think that.
You think meth kind of gets a bad rap?
No, I don't. I don't at all.
Andrew is a really good interviewer because he's very casual, which kind of disarms people. He's knowledgeable about a lot of complex topics, and he's very personable. I do think it's interesting that Clavicular stormed off an interview with an interviewer who is highly personable, who's typically very good at connecting with people, because it really showcases how much he outwardly rejects connection and charisma. But I think that Andrew's greatest strengths also make him a little bit sneaky when it comes to getting people to show their true colors, and we saw this also with the Shia LaBeouf interview, for example, because he knows what viewers are going to want to know about. He knows what questions they have, the most interesting, spicy topics. He knows what's going to be a really good narrative for the video, and he's very good at like gently pushing people in that direction. But that's the thing, if you're someone who like struggles with cognitive empathy, who can't really like put yourself inside the mind of somebody else and think about what they might be thinking, you're at great risk of being manipulated by others. And a lot of people on the spectrum struggle with this. They struggle to imagine what other people might be thinking and what their motivations might be, whereas narcissism, on the other hand, has great cognitive empathy typically, but very low affective empathy, which means they like don't really feel for other people, but they know what other people are thinking and feeling. But back to the point. Clavicular claims that Andrew didn't ask him a single Looksmaxxing question. Andrew points out that they've been talking about it this whole time.
I would say that you've done a pretty shitty job.
All right, well, I think people probably want to learn about you, and that was what I was trying to give you the opportunity to do.
Well, no, I know. I think that's totally fair, and I applaud you for that. But not one, question about Looksmaxxing.
There's been so many questions about Looksmaxxing. I probably asked you about Looksmaxxing like 40 times.
And then things start to get really tense. It's almost like Clavicular wishes Andrew were asking him a personal question about how he should be more attractive. And here's the thing that tips Clavicular into ending the interview. When you watch this next clip, I want you to ask yourself, why might someone be upset about this?
When you wake up every single morning and you take a look in the mirror, you're 100% satisfied with every single thing. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, dude. All right. Well, this, I guess that's just, if you want to be completely disingenuous, that's fine with me. I guess there's just no point to continue.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, guys. No worries. Yeah, no, everything's fine.
And then he straight up ends the interview. So again, I ask you, why might someone who has dedicated their entire life to increasing their attractiveness be upset when they hear somebody else say that they're 100% happy with themselves every day when they look in the mirror? So upset that they immediately end the conversation. Why might they call that disingenuous? My theory is that Clavicular cannot even imagine a universe in which someone does not feel displeased with their body image. It feels so far removed from his experience, and he seems to struggle with the idea that other people might have different experiences from him. But also, if you're someone who's dedicated your entire life to physical attractiveness, and you meet someone who says, nah, I'm actually pretty happy with myself and I don't feel the need to really change the way I look, imagine how much that might sting. Because it reveals that this approach of like looksmaxxing and optimizing his appearance to a T, it's not the only route he could have taken. It's possible to feel good about yourself without ever changing your appearance. It's possible to invest in yourself not just externally but internally. It's possible that other people have value that is beyond just like useful objects, and that other people are capable of connecting with each other at a deeper level than Clavicular seems to be able to. How could that not hurt? So we learned something about Clavicular as a result of this. When his worldview that beauty is all that matters gets called into question by someone who lives his life differently, it's so painful for him to tolerate that he literally needs to end the conversation. And one last thought that I had about Clavicular, I heard that he told a woman, my culture is not your costume, when she was using looksmaxxing vernacular, because like in his opinion, you know, these are terms that only men are allowed to use. But honestly, in my opinion, there's nothing more feminine than looksmaxxing. No matter how much disdain these incel communities have for anything feminine or related to women, you could argue that looksmaxxing is them doing something that women have been doing since the dawn of time. In every species, there tends to be like one sex which typically like dresses up. Like in peacocks, it's the male. In the human species, it's typically women that do that, who use makeup to accentuate their best features or hide others, who put effort into their hair and nails, who are more strongly shamed for their weight. So when incels act like they invented looksmaxxing, they fail to realize that they are the ones actually taking part in one of the most quintessentially historically female behaviors. So I would argue actually it's Clavicular who is, how did he call it, wearing women's culture as his costume. But anyway, I'm really interested in hearing what you guys think about this interview and Clavicular in general. This was fascinating for me to watch, and I hope to do more videos like this in the future. Take care.
Tell me what you